So the title to that will be explained later. Here is some out of focus parts showing you all the little bits and pieces I added off camera. They were too hard to film, but these are just little things for ropes to grab onto. These are little bits of components that add onto the deck. Those little square pieces. Everything's cut out, edge trimmed, um, put together. The only thing I did differently was these little tiny ones, like those four there. Those are actually um, pulled sprue with a paper piece on top of it, paper disc on top. But overall, the whole thing. Oh yeah, and I put that in, put the anchor in, and that was easy. I had to trim it and then just slid it up there. It looks pretty cool. So the overall machine looks like this so far. I haven't done anything with the props yet, but you just getting the idea. What we're going to work on is going to be the conning tower here. Um, and like I said, the name of the rhinoplasty, reverse rhinoplasty, will become evident as we move along. But that's what the whole thing looks like. It's pretty handsome. It's going to look cool. Not sure about the colors, because from what I've seen, it was never green, but who knows? We're okay. So what we're going to do is start working on the conning tower, and that's all this stuff. So there's multiple pieces that go onto it, and there's a top separate piece. There's a back piece, which is where the airplane goes with little tracks that go inside, which is really cool. And all of this and then that's a door that fits that's going to go on the end. I might even try to put some kind of hinge on it. Not sure. And the airplane's going to be outside anyway. But here are the basic parts. There's a skeleton underneath there, and then everything else. Here's the tube that is the inside where you put tracks on. That goes in the back. Those are the little tracks right there. And those simulate I guess you'd put the airplane on to bring it out and put it back in. So that thing has to be rolled around. There's a little, I glued a trim piece on there, or a little binding strip on there. So that rolls around like we do all the time, and becomes a cylinder like that, a tube. And then that will go inside that back piece. And we'll show you how we do that in a little bit. It took a little head scratching, but it worked. And each of these pieces fits on there. And I've already put the little teeth, the little joiners on. And what I did off camera then is those two pieces, that one and this one, I actually added those on before I put them onto the skeleton, just like I've done on some airplane skins, and that seems to work well because there's very little seam. So that's that part right there. I just glued it on like everything else, but I glued it together, and now the seam is very minimal, which looks nice. These other ones actually fit well, so I don't have to worry about that. And then you've got the front mantle pieces. So they have two in the kit. The one on the right is the more difficult one to put together. You can see all of the cuts that go into it. Dang, it reminds me of a slee stack, those of you who are old enough to remember. And I tried both, and this is the one that's the easy, quote unquote, the easy one. And I tried to trim it, and you can see I tried to color it and stuff. It fits really well. I think it fits fine, but it looks ratty. This one, I think, will actually get a better contour. It will look more like the real thing. With all those extra cuts in there, it's harder to put on, and it's going to be much harder to get together, but I think I want to use that one. I think the way it splays out, I think it will actually work better, but it'll just be a bigger pain to fit. So I think I end up doing the more complicated one. But for now, oh yeah, I put the little rails in there and then rolled it over. Put them in first and then rolled it over and glued it. So that's ready to go. So that's where that's going to fit inside there like so, all the way back. And then that is going to be really cool because you can look back there and see those tracks going into there, into the little hanger. That's kind of neat. At 1/200 scale, it's amazing. So this I've test fit a bunch of times. I know where it goes. You got to make sure you put it on the right way. I put arrows on mine to remember. You can see arrows everywhere because I will likely put things on backwards. But that one just fits right in there, and there's a couple little notch lines on the top that will tell me where center is. So I went ahead and glued this first kind of at the center and got it on. I've test fit this again 60,000 times to make sure that it's going to look okay. The fit is very good. It's not perfect, but it's very, very good. Good enough for me. And so we'll start with that. So first, I decided rather than trying to put it all on at once, I'm just putting on the center. And see here, there's a tiny little line there, and there's a nice obvious one on that side. And those are my center line. So I put them along the center line of my little skeleton there. And just basically drop them down, make sure that they're on where they're supposed to be, push them to tighten them up, and make sure that she's on there, and make sure that it's straight, which it is ultimately. It looks just great. Then after this part, go back and sort of cement down the edges, the sides. But this is all just making sure that you've got a good contour and that initially everything's stuck where it's supposed to be, which is, ideal. So I come back after that dries a little bit and add a little glue to my formers. And you can see in terms of lining things up, the teeth are just on the edge of that front former. That seemed to be a good place to put those. It seems like everything's going to fit because you didn't know. I wasn't sure how far forward to put this or how far back, but I think that's about right. So I just put glue on there, fold this thing over, hold it, and let it dry. At one point, I put it on the table and kind of flattened it out so that I could, so that the paper would touch the glue where it's supposed to completely. But that's that. Looks really good when it's done. Then the next piece really fits nicely. It fits right in like that, and it folds right over. There's no seam. Going to work great. So just test fitting it a bunch of times, and you can see those teeth disappear. She looks good on that side. This slight on the bottom, the only thing about this whole thing is they seem to be a little long. You can see that they don't butt up to the very edge of that bottom planer piece, the very bottom piece. So what I ended up doing at the very end when this is all together is trim it down and then sand it with a sanding block to make it flat and get rid of all the excess. I don't know if that's something I did or if that's on purpose, because it definitely did not fit exactly onto the bottom. In fact, if you would match them up on the bottom right to the edge of the laser cut piece and then roll it up carefully, the center mark is way off. It's not where it's supposed to be. So I use the center mark as my place, and then it's much easier to just trim some little bits off of either edge. And when I say trim, we're not trimming off, feet of things. It's a fraction of it's a millimeter. It's a couple millimeters at one point, maybe a millimeter mostly. It's not a lot. It's not like as a throw the model away, it's never going to come together. It's just, I'm not sure because everything's been so perfect. So I'm not sure why it's quite that way. But it was more important to line up those center lines and make sure those white pieces line up, because that's where a top part is going to go on. And those have to disappear ultimately. So those have to be accurate. And so I worried about that rather than worrying about where either end goes. So once I got those on and sort of tweaked it a little bit, everything turned out rosy. Looks really good. The last piece is my piece that has the little tunnel in it with the tracks, and I'm testing it to see how it fits. And it again fits very well. It's kind of hard to figure out how to get it on the back, because when you stick this together, there's nothing that holds it up now. There's no you can see that the skeleton ends, and so it's hard to figure out how to actually put that last piece on and make it look good. And then you can see some of the overlap on the bottom. So I had to kind of scratch my tiny head and figure out how it's going to work. In the meantime, I was testing these again, my Sleestack heads, and checking them. And again, that's the easy one, and it seems to fit pretty dang well. Fits all around the edge. It looks ratty, partly because I didn't do a good job of cutting it out, and partly because my coloring of the edges bled. I'm not enamored with that one. So yeah, it looks like a Sleestack, or it looks like Iron Giant, or maybe the Rocketeer. It looks like all those things, but I'm going to stick with Sleestack. So anyway, I remember when Land of the Lost came out. I was so excited when that came out. And then here's the more complicated one again. I'm checking this again just to remind myself, is this going to work? And I do think it looks better. It's amazing. All those pieces are cut, but when you fold it on there, it kind of goes into place. And so what I did was take this and edge paint it very carefully with a fine brush, a better green color to make it work better. Now, that piece there, 64D, that piece, I used it to locate where you're going to put this thing. So what I did was cut it out and glued it to the end there, made sure it was lined up so that the tracks are even in the center of it. So that acts, it's just a piece of paper, but it acts as a place to glue onto the bottom edge of this piece here. So this located it, I think, pretty well. So if I just glue it like that and then glue the tube down, then I've got the whole little hanger basically situated kind of automatically. And so once I figured that out, it worked great. And the tube goes up, it butts up against the skeleton up in the front, the vertical piece that comes down. So it all right there. So it all works pretty well, and it's going to be flat enough that the top hood will fit over it. So what I did was, and I don't know how this is how you're supposed to do it, but this is what I did. I added the tube first. So I put a little bit of glue on that edge and a little bit of glue along the center, and then glue on the back edge, which is the really important piece because that's what's going to help locate it. And then I went ahead and added this thing and made sure it was square. So all I did was line up that back edge like that. Bam, make sure it's on there. Because if that's straight and you cut everything out carefully, everything should be good. Then I just sort of made sure that it was clean and made sure it was straight and kind of pushed it tiny bit to contact the glue. And there it is. So that actually works pretty well. And it does end up fitting inside the next piece, the hood that goes over it. And you can see it looks cool. You see the tracks going down in there? It's kind of awesome. It just gives you, and a white inside probably is about what it would be. It probably would have been a light color on the inside. Now here's where I take these and I cut them off a little bit with an X-Acto blade. I'm just showing you how I did that. I ended up at the very end, like I said, using a sanding block. I also colored all this stuff black with a black Sharpie because I want to make sure you won't see stuff in there once you put the hood on. Because once that's on there, you want it to be black in there, I would assume. If it was white, that's fine, but I think it would look too funny with white. I wanted to make sure it looked like big eye sockets. So then I decided to go in here and put on the last part of the main part of the conning tower, except for the very front, the sleeve stack end. And this just goes on like everything else, like a fuselage former, like anything, exactly the same. A little bit of glue, a touch of glue on the top so there's a place to stick on the cylinder, and then along the sides, on the bottom edges, and then you just put this thing down, and it came along really nice. One side was cleaner than the other. One side was not quite at the base, at the tail end there, right back there. So that just has to be colored. And then when I ended up sanding it all down to make a flat fit on the deck, it actually kind of disappeared anyway. Then I'm putting a little bit around the outside edge there, a little glue, making sure that this is all fine on there. It's okay if it's a lot of glop because it comes off. And then you go ahead and drop this on. Again, lining up the white is more important than anything, I think. Lining up the best you can. There is no tick mark to line it, but you line it with the white. Sweep off your excess, and you can see it fits nice. You don't see any teeth in there. Make sure the top gets a little bit of love, and then you come back to the back end there and make sure that comes around that piece of paper. And you want to be careful with that because it is just a piece of paper. It isn't. I thought it would have a backing of cardboard, but it doesn't. And mine sticks out slightly. See, it's a little bit long, but I'm okay with that. I think I'm just going to say that's the way it went. Maybe that former is supposed to be butted right up in the edge. And there on my thumb, you can see that bottom part where there's a little bit extra opening. But there it is. You can see that's what it looks like inside. And, I think it looks cool. I'm not going to put the airplane inside, but it's going to be cool. We didn't make the hangar door yet. We're going to make that pretty soon. We'll make that and the gun barrels next probably. But, it looks really good. I'm very excited how it looks. Because now the last thing is the painful thing, which is that front end. Looks awesome, I think. So here we go. Now, what happened with this? This was the same old story. I mean, I've shown this 100 times so you can be bored. But there it is. There's that shape. There's the shape on the bottom part. Everything looks great. And um, this is all painted black. That's where the gun barrels are going to go. So left them uncolored so I could kind of see where they're supposed to go. Now, those are my two sleeve stacks. And you can see I've worked real hard on the one on the right. I'll show you some tricks I did to make it look pretty good. This one, though, just to show you one last time, you line up the center, fits really nice, right on the edge, looks great, looks very good. Just doesn't, to me, it just looks a little funny. Plus, again, it has to do with how I cut it out. Isn't very good. But notice the bottom, it fits right around the laser cut parts. It's gorgeous. But I just don't like what I've done to the piece itself. I don't like those lines, and I really messed the gun openings up. So I worked on this puppy. So this thing still needs a little touch up, but you can see it's been put together, and it fits really beautifully. And I just think it has a better shape, a slightly better, more rounded shape to it. It looks so flat in a couple places. I think it looks more like the original. I do like how it looks. I like the curve. And those lines aren't that obvious. However, that's my finger for the however. When you turn it over, look how it does not come even close to matching the contour of the deck. So what do? Well, I decided to add a little fingernail clip full of cardboard. And if I do that and slide this up, and I just did that by eye, looking at what it had to be and sanded it to the kind of the right shape. Now when I do this, pick it up, fits like a charm. I mean, it'll at least hold it over. And it's okay if it's a little long. No one will know on the deck. It'll look fine. So I decided to use that cover, and I will just add that piece to make up the difference and give me a nice place to actually sort of attach, is the idea. Now this thing, I use my dabbing tools. I also filled the inside in with strips of paper everywhere. These I painted later. This was just so that everything would be all the seams would be kind of strong and covered. And I did a good job on them, but they were still a little bit funny. So what I did was burnish the seams. And what I did was take these dabbing tools, which again allows a round shape, a spherical shape. And so I could then take something like a paintbrush or something, and I licked these a little bit, get some water on there. I also tried this, literally tapping them a little bit, like you're trying to break loose some jets on a carburetor. And that actually worked really well. Just a little bit in a couple places that were kind of recalcitrant and stuck out a little much, had big steps on them. But I did that, and I did the burnishing. And, looking at it right now, the video, it doesn't look that beautiful. It doesn't look that beautiful. But up in the real thing, if you just look at it, it actually is quite good. Then I mixed some paint and started to touch up edges, and I got to touch up some more on there. But that's what I did to make that look passable. Because the other option is to sand it and all that and fill it and then repaint it completely. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted to try to make this like a Polish person would do it. There's the inside all painted. There's the outside. And I glued that little extra lip on, colored it black, colored the edges green. And so then all I got to do is glue this puppy on. And it's nice to have test fitted it and everything, because it just basically slides right on like that. And it's on. And the bottom is nice, and it fits the curve very well. And again, just as it's a little bit long, I'm not worried about that. Again, no one's going to care unless they go down and measure the real boat down in the depths. I don't think that's going to matter so much. So that's what I did. So then all you got to do is glue this thing together. So gluing is the same old thing. Put a little bit on all the teeth and around all the edges. Just keep it going. I put a little bit of glue, I think I did, on the spine there, at least in the initial top part, but not all the way down because my new hood with the holes in it does not come in contact with that piece. I could have also added cardboard to that to make the curve touch on the inside, but it's not necessary as long as I have everything's black in there so you can't really see, and as long as I have the contour look good and the base is connected, I really didn't have to worry about the other part. So that's what I did. I didn't bother. So here I am sliding it on here, and it's amazing. It fits really beautifully. Add a little bit of, or take off a little bit of glue. Make sure she's on there. Push it in. Squeeze it. Kind of cajole it. Get it into the right position. And make sure you minimize your seams. There you go. That looks pretty good. And just make sure you keep doing that until you got it where you want it. That already is attaching just fine. Now I'm just kind of making sure that it's all together and the glue is hitting it. Dang, that was a part I was not looking forward to, and it's on. And I think it looks okay. Again, the bottom part I'm not showing, but I did sand off the bottom with a sanding block to make it level. But on the boat when it's on there, that's going to look just sweet. Barrels and some other parts of the conning tower next.